Hey Vsause, Michael here. Hey TRC, me here. Size is something that we are so used to in our normal lives that we forget how complicated it can be. So today's video is all about size. First off, we have to ask Aunt Google for a definition of size. Hey Google, what's the definition of size?
Size is the relative extent of something, a thing's overall dimensions or magnitude, how big something is.
Okay, so that explanation is a bit too long for me. So in this video, we will only focus on the last bit of the definition. Size is how big something is. You see, if we only use this simple sentence, we still don't have an idea of what size actually is. You see, something can be this big, or this big, but if we just look at these pictures, we still don't have an idea of how big those objects are. So let me add a few words to that sentence. Size is how big something is compared to something else. You see, size is an illusion. Okay, this video is really starting to turn into a Vsause video. Anyways, if I show you this picture of a Starbucks cup, you would not be able to tell me what size that cup is. But if I place it next to a few other Starbucks cups, you would be able to tell me what size that cup is. And you can tell me that just based on the comparison you made between the Starbucks cups. Also, if you tell me that this cup has a diameter of 3 centimeters for argument's sake, and this cup has a diameter of 7 centimeters, you can probably tell me that the diameter of this cup is around 5 centimeters. You can only determine something's size if you compare it to something else which size you already know. If I compare the Earth to the Sun, I can see that the Sun is very large. But if I now compare the Sun to the Milky Way, you can see that the Sun is extremely small. It isn't even a pixel in this photo. Therefore, something can be big or small, but that title depends on what you compare that object to. Okay, I know, that's a lot of useless information for a cubing channel. But I hope that I did a decent job at explaining all of this stuff, because we are going to be using size in this video to compare some stuff to a Rubik's Cube. Okay, so here we have an original Rubik's brand cube. On its own, you cannot tell me what the size of this cube is unless you have an exact copy of this cube. The second part of the definition of size says,
a thing's overall dimensions or magnitude.
So to determine its size, let's measure it. Okay, so on camera it doesn't show very well, but the size of this cube is about 56 millimeters. Now, since the sides of this Rubik's Cube were made equally, we can assume that this side is 56 millimeters, this side is 56 millimeters, and this side is 56 millimeters. And the dimensions of this cube is very average for a normal 3x3 Rubik's Cube. Next off, we need to calculate the cube's volume, because we're going to use that to determine how many cubes can fit into a certain space. So here is our trusty calculator. As you can see, the volume of this cube is 175,616 cubic millimeters. That's quite the number. By the way, I'm not 100% sure that what I'm doing in this video is 100% mathematically correct. I do think that it is, but if there is a math mistake you see me doing in this video, please let me know in the comments. Moving on, I think we will start at the smallest object in today's video, a grain of sand. This is just a random particle I picked up in my house. This is probably a bit bigger than an average size grain of sand. Now, since my ruler cannot measure something as small as a grain of sand, we need to ask Google for the dimensions of a grain of sand. Hey Google, what is the average volume of a grain of sand?
Assuming a grain of sand is roughly spherical, the average volume of a grain is 4/3 x pi xr3 equals 0.00947 cubic millimeters, where r is the radius.
Okay, so without complicating things too much, we will use 0.00947 cubic millimeters as our grain of sand volume. Now as you can see, the trusty calculator calculated that we can fit approximately 5.39 times 10 to the power of -8 Rubik's cubes into a grain of sand. Now I know that that is quite a weird number, but to put it more clearly, that is 1/20 millionth of a Rubik's cube that fits into that grain of sand. So the conclusion, a grain of sand is very small compared to a Rubik's cube. Now we have a lot of objects to go through, so I'm not going to show the calculations each time. And therefore we will move directly to objects bigger than the cube, otherwise this video will take forever. And we really want to get to the sun comparison. Anyway, next up we have a Twin Savers tissue box. I know, quite a weird object. Now the dimensions of this box are 112mm by 81mm by 217mm, measured by me. With these dimensions, we can fit approximately 11 cubes into this box. 11.21 to be more exact, but still rounded. This is the number I calculated with my trusty calculator. Okay, now let's take a huge leap to the Mauna Kea, the mountain with the largest volume in the world. Okay, before you attack me and the Earth in the comment section because you thought that Mount Everest has the largest volume because it is the tallest mountain in the world, give me 2 minutes to explain my side. You see, with mountains we have two heights. I know, that's very confusing, right? The first height is the altitude of the peak of the mountain. In other words, how high up is the peak of the mountain above sea level. The next height is base to peak height. So in other words, how tall is the mountain from its lowest point at the base to its highest point at the peak. Now Mount Everest is considered to be the tallest mountain in the world because it has the highest peak altitude of any mountain in the world. Most of the Mauna Kea is below sea level. So the Mauna Kea only has a peak altitude of about 4 kilometers. Now since Mount Everest's peak is the highest above sea level of any other mountain in the world, we consider Mount Everest to be the tallest mountain. Even though the Mauna Kea is the tallest from base to peak. Yes, I know, that is all very confusing and I hope that all of the things I said made sense. Now let me know in the comments if you knew this fact before watching this video. Because I know I certainly did not. Okay, so Google tells us that the Mauna Kea is 10,210 meters or 33,500 feet from base to peak. And Google also tells us that the volume is unknown to the human race. But the estimate stands on 40,000 cubic kilometers, according to a Google page. Wikipedia says 32,000, but we know that that is not trustworthy. And another one says 42,000. So I decided to just use 40,000 because it doesn't even matter anyways. We just want to do some maths. With 40,000 cubic kilometers, they can fit approximately 2.27 times 10 to the power of 17, or this big number,
227,679,379,391,545
of Rubik's cubes into the Mauna Kea. Now that's already a big number, but you will notice that that number is not bigger than the 43 quintillion combinations of scrambles you can get on a Rubik's cube. So let's get that number even bigger. The Earth is a mysterious combination of elements. Just the right amounts of everything to make sure that the planet is habitable by life. The Earth is big compared to humans, but very small compared to the galaxy. So let's calculate how big the Earth is compared to a Rubik's Cube. Earth has a radius of about 6,371 kilometers according to Google. Some smart people, called mathematicians, also calculated the volume of the Earth to be this big number of cubic kilometers. With some calculations that I hope are very accurate, we can see that the Earth can hold 6.2 times 10 to the power of 24, or this big number,
6 septillion 168 sextillion 42 quintillion 301 quadrillion 646 trillion 774 billion 838 million 283,527
of Rubik's cubes. So you will notice that that is quite a lot of cubes, and to be honest, I kinda wanna know how many will fit into the Sun. So let's jump right to the Sun. Now Google says that the radius of the Sun is 696,340 kilometers, and the volume of the sun is this big number in cubic kilometers. So using this, we will do our calculations and see that the sun can contain 8 times 10 to the power of 30, or this big number
8 nonillion 24 octillion 739 septillion 27 sextillion 536 quintillion 555 quadrillion 496 trillion 82 billion 361 million 516,034
of Rubik's cubes. Now also according to Google, we can fit approximately 1.3 million Earths into the sun. So doing some quick check-up maths, we can see that indeed our calculations were close enough to correct. So there you have it folks. I guess that will be the end of this video. We calculated the size of stuff by comparing it to this Rubik's Cube. The numbers we got weren't as big as I thought they would be, but don't get me wrong, those numbers were incredibly big. So if you people really like this video, let me know in the comments down below if you want me to go bigger. Because we can go to solar systems, big stars, and even galaxies or the observable universe. So make sure to let me know in the comments if you think that's a good idea. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to
like the smash button
and also
subscribe up to the Rubik's Challenger.
Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.